They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And of course, by any substantial measure, this ENASA designed and bodied Pegaso Z102 coupe cannot be compared in terms of aesthetic appeal to its touring or Sauchik bodied sisters. Nonetheless, I think this car is absolutely stunning because it is so incredibly purposeful in its period way. This looks like a race car in 1952 should look. And when you think about what was going on at that time, it's all about functionality with style. The entire idea of the 30s and aerodynamic research is still in evidence in this car, and the idea of taking a car and a GT car and lightening it and making it suitable for the track is evident everywhere. The fact that they cut these wonderful louvers in the hood, the purposeful cooling duct on the rear fender for the brakes, and everything lightened, everything drilled, even the spinners on the knockoffs of the wire wheels are drilled. This is a car that is clearly meant for business. The other thing I love about this car is the fact that in a time when race cars are really known for their sponsor livery, this is a car that proudly proclaims its national heritage. Painted in the colors of the Spanish flag, this bright red and deep orange. It's an amazing tribute to an amazing nation and the vision of Wilfredo Ricard. At the 2023 Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, this Pegaso Z102 ENASA competition coupe was the poster car on the 25th anniversary of the Pebble Beach Tour. Now you can see it here on the Audrain Museum Network, live and in action. Become a subscriber today. Click that button, click the bell icon, and join us. It's June 1952, and Joaquin Palacio is in practice in the Principality of Monte Carlo in Monaco, preparing to qualify this Pegaso Z102 ENASA lightweight competition coupe for the Monaco Grand Prix. In 1952, the race was run to a formula of 2-liter sports cars rather than the open-wheel Grand Prix cars as traditionally been done since the race started in 1929. A lot of eyes were on the race because the post-war sports car and racing boom had truly begun. The field was a who's who in the sports car world. The relatively new company, Ferrari, of course, was there. Aston Martin, Talbot Lago, all of the companies that had made their name in pre-war racing and those who were just starting out to make their mark after World War II. And it was a very interesting point because, of course, the recently founded Spanish company Pegaso needed to make sure that it could make its mark both in the world of street GT cars as well as the most important place, sports car racing. Because Wilfredo Ricard, the head of Pegaso and his chief designer, had a lot to prove, especially when it came to Enzo Ferrari. And Ricard was a fellow who never saw a simple problem that could not be solved in a complicated manner. This is an amazingly complex vehicle with a 4-cam V8 engine, 4 carburetors, beautifully force-fed with a neat ram air induction system, inboard rear brakes, more on that later, and delightfully over-engineered for all occasions. Part of that became a problem when making the Pegaso Z102 a racing car because, of course, weight is the enemy in a racing car. And by any standards, this Pegaso coupe, even liberally drilled for lightness, as this car is, was not a very light car. And therein came the problem with the brakes, because this Pegaso was a fast car. In fact, in 1953, it would become the fastest production car in the world with a 151 mile per hour speed record set in Yabaki, Belgium. Now, all of that speed came, as I said, at a great price. And there's nothing quite like a car with a lot of power that you have to be afraid of when it comes to stopping it, especially at a place like Monaco, where the brakes are used hard. One of the other characteristics of this car is the fact that it's really set up in a way to naturally understeer, which is terrific as a car that likes to slide. But again, in a place like Monaco, with lots of tight turns, not necessarily a very desirable trait. All of that sliding slows you down. And Palacio and the second team driver, Juan Jover, found that not only were they a handful on the Monaco streets, but they were also very hot inside. And although, of course, Monaco is not a distance race, a driver nonetheless has to keep all of his wits and concentration about him in order to make sure that they don't make a mistake on those narrow streets with then, not lined with Armco, but the high street curves. That if you hit one of those, the car was definitely going someplace you didn't want it to go. And of course, what's worst of all is the fact that Monaco was just the warm-up, the car's debut, for what they were really hoping for, which was success at Le Mans, which is coming up just a few weeks later. Pegaso had an entry for 3 of these lightweight coupes at Le Mans, and after Monaco, where Palacio did qualify, but with the problems with the brakes and Jover not qualifying, they decided to withdraw after qualifying, and they did not run in the race. They decided that the coupes were not the answer because they were too heavy and too hot. And so they prepared 3 touring-bodied Spiders for Le Mans. Spiders were fast, but they still, despite their lighter weight, suffered from the same problems that the coupes had with the brakes, especially at Le Mans, which was so fast. These cars could get up to 130, 140 miles per hour on the big straights at Le Mans. And during practice for the race, Juan Jover crashed his car quite heavily. And so once again, the cars were withdrawn. That they were fast, of course, was proved, as I said before, at Yabaki. But then, after another entry at Le Mans in '53, it was entered in the Carrera Panamericana, where the cars actually ran quite well on a very difficult but open roads, but again they failed to finish. So at that point, Pegaso's international racing career was just about over. The cars did have some success in local events in Spain, but it did not make nearly the splash on the international scene that everyone at Pegaso had hoped for. This car, chassis 115, is that very car that Joaquin Palacio qualified at Monaco. In a fashion typical of the day, after its racing career, as short as it was over, it was brought back to the factory, slightly modified to make it more street friendly. The chassis renumbered and sold to a customer as a new car. This is something that's not unusual. Ferrari did much the same thing quite often. And the new owner actually did do a little bit of racing in Spain with the car, some hill climbs and the like, and then he retired it and made it his family car. It did go back to the factory for service, at which time they actually renumbered the car with its original chassis number, 115. And from there, was sold to the US. Very original, but as a restoration project, which was undertaken by the great Harrah Collection in Reno, Nevada. The Harrah Collection never completed the restoration. They stripped the car apart, identified it all, and in the 1970s sold it to Dr. Nick Begovic, where it joined his distinguished collection, including another Pegaso, a touring bodied coupe, chassis 0149. At the time it was sold to Nick Begovic, it was not known that this was the Monaco car. And once Nick and his mechanic and restorer, Tony Fabozzi, discovered that that was the car's identity, they began to do some research into the car's history. But they didn't make much progress on the restoration by the time it was acquired by the Audrain collections. And they did that research with the help of Pegaso expert Mario Laguna, an amazing man, incredibly knowledgeable, truly passionate about the Pegaso mark, who has been incredibly helpful to the Audrain collections when we embarked on the restoration of this car to its Monaco specifications. And this amazing restoration, very detailed, very exacting, very correct, executed by the legendary RM Restoration Shop in Blenheim, Ontario, Canada. We brought this car to the 2023 Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, where it was a great feature and highlight in the Pegaso class, and also featured as one of the two star cars, the other being the Audrain Collections ex-Begovic touring body 0149, on the poster for the 25th anniversary Pebble Beach Tour d'Elegance. So while this car never did find competition glory, it's an amazing historical object. And if you like rarity, and there were only 76 Pegasos ever built, this is one of 3 lightweight coupes, and the only one to have qualified for a major international racing event. This is your car. I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. And I salute Joaquin Palacio and Wilfredo Ricard for having the vision to build a car like this and to bring it to the world. This is an extraordinary, extraordinary experience. Here, the roar of that 4-cam engine is a glorious thing.